Hi there, this is Jack of All. I wanted to make a video just showing how I'm making a jaw for a hinge for a moving jaw mask. It's been something I've been working on piecing together for a while, and I'm finally getting to work on it, so figured I'd show you all the process, maybe take you into even making the mask. We'll see where it goes. First of all, I kind of looked up some references and just took a look at like what other people have done previously, how they've done moving jaw masks and all that sort of stuff. But I came up with a little drawing. I drew out a pattern just showing what I wanted to do. And then after I kind of had the idea of like, okay, how's it going to work? Okay, where's the hinge going to go? How's it going to connect to the stuff? I cut out some pieces of paper, just as pattern pieces. So I have like the bottom part and then the top part. And the idea is that this top will connect to the top part of the mask and this will connect to the bottom, and then when you talk and move your mouse, it'll kind of hinge. Hopefully. that's the idea, at least. So after I cut them out, I held them up to my face, just made sure that they would actually fit if I connected them, and you know that they were actually going to work for what I was doing. And then I just transferred them onto some Worbla black art, I believe is what it's called. Just traced them on there and cut them out. This is really good. I've never actually used Worbla before this project, but it's been something I've had my eye on for a while. I usually stick to just EVA foam, so this was definitely a new experiment to try out. The Worbla black art, I believe, has a nicer finish than the other, like the classic or original type of Worbla. I think it finishes smoother from what I can tell. So I have a whole roll of this, and I just cut out some little pieces. And the nice thing is that this is a lot firmer than EVA foam, so like I can make these hinges out of it, and it'll be really thin and easy to attach, but it's not gonna, like, you know, with EVA foam, if you have like a 2mm piece of EVA foam, it's gonna be all bendy and wiggly and there's gonna be no structure. But with this, it's pretty solid once it's been heated and, you know, once you've actually used it to make stuff. So I cut out two of these, of each of these. I traced the templates on twice, so that I could create a sandwich, because I found that once you, like, just one piece is just a little bit too thin, but once you have two, then it's nice and stiff and it's not going anywhere. So I cut out two of each of the pieces and then stuck them together with some heat, which I'm sure I'll show you in a moment. And then, yep, I just, I punched a hole in the ends so that I could attach a little hinge piece, like a little, you could use a screw or a bolt, but I just made a piece out of Worbla, to attach between there so that they could hinge on that joint. And then once they were together, I just put some elastic on it so that they would pull together normally, and then when they're attached to the mask, when you're moving, they'll open, and when you're not talking, they'll close. So like I said, I traced it onto some black art. I'm just going to take you through essentially the process of making the second ones, because I've made one hinge already, like one of these, just to experiment and see if it would actually work. But this is I'm just gonna walk you through making the other one, because I feel like, for me at least, having some visuals to follow can actually help quite a bit. So with the first ones, I traced on this side where I have all my pencil marks, but for the second one, so that I can mirror it, I'm going to use the other side, and I was tracing onto the rougher side of the Worbla, just so that it would actually, like, I don't know, show up, I suppose. So yeah, nothing super fancy. I just traced these out, and like I said, I traced them twice, just so that they'd be thicker when I put them together. and I don't know if you'll be able to see if the camera will pick it up, but there's a little bit of, like, it's very dark, but there is a little bit of pencil shine so that you can actually see where your marks are. And then I just cut all the pieces out. This stuff is a lot easier to cut than I thought it was going to be. I had a worry that I would have to, like, use a Dremel or something to cut it out, but scissors work just fine, which is nice. So, yeah, I did I don't think it matters very much if the edges are a little bit rough, because when you heat the Worbla up, you can kind of press them down and make them not sharp or anything, which is good. So yeah, I just did that, and I'm going to do that just a couple more times so that I have all my pieces cut out, and that they match all nice with the pattern piece. Alright, so now that I have all of my pieces cut out, so 2 of the top one that I've written top on, I don't know if you can actually see or not, but I've just marked them. I know that they're the same, but still. I have 2 of the top and 2 of the bottom ones. The next thing I need to do is go smush them together, so I'm gonna go grab my heat gun, and I'll see you guys in a second. Alright, so I kind of lied about a step in the process. I forgot you have to punch holes in these as well. So what I have here, I think it's used for leather work, I believe. I think it's just like a leather punch. We've used it for grommets and stuff in the past. This is just what I have. It's easy. It's nice. If you have like a hole punch for like paper, you could probably use that too, or even just an awl or a sharp pencil, honestly. But basically, this is the one I've done already. So I'm just kind of trying to center this little, like the hole for the hinge, I suppose, or like the screw. So to get them centered, I kind of just do them at the same time. So like I'll do the bottom one first, and I just kind of get it roughly positioned, and then I'm just checking in reference to the other one I have, as well as just making sure it's like somewhat of an even distance from the outside. Just punch a little hole in it, and that is as easy as that. So nice clean hole. When I did this last time, I stacked them on top of each other, just lined them up and put a hole in the exact same spot. The piece did crack last time, but I'm thinking, since it is not like, you know, it's not like you're doing like a decorative armor piece or something. This is just function over form. Yeah, this one didn't crack this time, but I don't think it really matters if it cracks, because I don't think it's going to affect the structure very much. I think it's just gonna, I think that would just be an issue if you were worried about the look of it, which I'm not. So for the top ones last time, I just kind of lined them up again and just made sure the hole was in the same spot, and then punched through again. And this is what cracked them the last time, was doing it like this. But again, since it's not like a display part, you know, it's not like you're making fancy armor and these are the super pretty pieces that need to go on the outside, I think it's fine. Yeah, so this one cracked a little bit, but not too bad, so I think it's fine. Alright, so now that the holes are through, basically the next step, and this is going to get a bit loud I suppose, is I'm using a heat gun. From what I can tell, you can also probably use a hairdryer, just set on the hottest setting. Obviously, if you're doing this, be careful not to burn yourself, because these get hot. Don't burn yourself, that would be bad. But yeah, basically, I'll probably time-lapse this, it goes really fast, but you just heat these up and then smush them together, and I'll show you that now. Alright, so now that they're nice and hot, I'm just gonna, they get kind of bendy, which is, I mean, kind of the whole point. I'm just gonna line up the hole at the end, so that the thing can still go through, and then line up the outer corner at the back, and then just kind of push them together. And I like to use a flat surface, in this case the ground, just to smoosh them nice and tight, so that they're not gonna, you know, I guess it would be considered delaminate, I think is the term, just so that they stay nice and smushed together and they're not gonna go anywhere. As this cools, it'll get nice and solid, and I'll just show you on the already cooled one. You can see, so one piece, like one thickness of Worbla is pretty bendy, and you know, it's gonna flop around a decent amount, but once you have two smushed together, they're, like, I'm using just about the same amount of force. They're a little bit flexible, which is good, because then if they get bent, they're not gonna snap, but they're pretty solid. You know, that's not gonna, you can use that, and that's not gonna wobble around a whole bunch, so that's why you go with two instead of one. So I'm gonna smush these two together, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now that I have the two pieces smushed together for both of the top and the bottom, I've also just kind of smushed the edges so that they line up better, and that there's no sharp parts, which is good. I'm thinking I might end up either cutting or heating up and reshaping these corners, because I'm not too sure on how well they'll fit in the mask when I actually end up making the mask. But essentially now the part is to make the little piece that works as the hinge. So what I did previously is I just had some little, like a little extra piece of Worbla. I had this flat piece that was just left over from cutting out these pieces, and so I just kind of rolled it up and squished it together. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to squish this and roll it until it's smooth and can fit through these holes as like a screw, and then I'm going to smush one of the ends and then heat up and smush the other end so that it'll fit in here. So I'll show you that now. I have been using some pliers just to kind of hold it in place so it doesn't roll across the floor. Now I'm going to try and take it off of these without burning myself. There we go. And yeah, it's really hot at this point, so if you're doing it the way I'm doing it, be careful not to burn yourself, but I'm just going to roll it out into a little bit thinner of a noodle, and then I'm going to test and see if it can fit through. So that's still a little bit big, so I've got to squish it down a little bit more, and I might have to reheat it, but we'll see. How does this fit now? Yeah, so it goes through, but it's not a smooth fit, so I'm just gonna smush it just a tiny bit more. And yeah, like I said, I might have to reheat it, but we'll see. Yeah, that's not too bad. And when both pieces are on there, this isn't how they're gonna go in the end. I have them upside down, but they'll still fit the same. Yeah, I'm gonna make it just a little bit smaller because they spin, but they're not loose spinning, and that's what I want. I want them to be pretty free on their own. And yeah, again, if you're doing it like this, this is probably stupid because these get really hot because they're metal. There's probably much better ways to do this where you won't risk branding yourself by touching it accidentally. So now that's a little bit thinner. Let's try that. Yeah, that fits a lot better. So that's probably what I'm going to go with. So I'll just put this on here like this just to see. And yeah, those spin on their own pretty well. So that's how I'm going to go with the end. These have a little bit, I think it's a wire cutter right here. So I'm just going to use that just to slice this down to a much better size. And I'm going to hang on to that end bit because I'll need it in a bit. How are these going to go? They're going to go So once I know how they're gonna fit, I'm just gonna really quickly test the fit again, just to make triple sure. I'd rather check more times than I need than screw it up and have to do it again. So those fit good. I'm happy with how they line up. The next step is I'm going to squish the end just so that it, you know, forms a stopper so the pieces don't slide off. And I'm just gonna gently, you know, make sure my fingers aren't too far into the heat. But I find it easier to hold it like this than trying to hold it with the pliers. So now that that's like that, I'm just gonna squish that end and kind of use my finger and my nails to shape it into a bit of a stopper. I'm not too worried about this like sticking to me, because as I've found so far, it seems to mostly just stick to itself. Though it is definitely on my mind to be careful about not like some molten plastic on me. But yeah, so I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's kind of a T-shaped stopper on the end there now. So now when I put the pieces on, they should hopefully just sit on the end there instead of, yeah, so now it can't slide through. It's just gonna rest on the end there, which is exactly what I want. So I'm gonna put the pieces on how I want them to sit in the end, just making sure that that stopper isn't sticking out too far or anything. So I want, actually I have these on backwards, because I want this top piece to sit on top of the lower piece, because that's how I have the other one, and I want them to be mirrored, not the same, so that there's one for each side. So now that that is like that, they're both gonna work freely, which is nice. This end piece, I previously, on the last one, I cut it down like as low as I could get it, but that is pretty much as low as that can go, I think. I'm just gonna check. Holding it up here. Yeah, so that's about as low as that can go. So what I'm gonna do now is, with this extra piece that I cut off earlier, I'm gonna just cut it in half roughly, just so that it's a little bit more of a ball shape and it's smaller, so that it'll be easier to work with. And then once it is in that kind of ball shape, I'm going to heat it up and then smush it onto the end here so that there's a stopper on the other side so the pieces can't slide off. And I'm again going to use these pliers to just hold it in place. Alright, again, being very careful not to touch the metal and burn myself. This piece is really hot, so I'm just kind of going to squish it onto that top part there. It seems to just want to stick to the post, which is good. That's how I want it to stay. And yeah, I'm just going to make sure that it sticks out at the edges and it sits mostly flat, because then we have a little stopper, so now the pieces can't slide off of that post. So now I have two of these kind of hinge pieces going in opposite directions, so I can use that. Now the next part I haven't actually done on either of these yet, because I think I'm going to wait a little bit, but essentially the next step is to take some elastic, and that elastic is going to start on the outside roughly there, loop around the bottom to there, and get glued like that, so that when it's stretched open, there's resistance, so that when it's not actively being pushed on, it'll kind of pull back to its starting spot. And I don't think I'm going to glue that on until I have the mask ready and I can see how it's going to fit. Another thing I need to do, potentially, when I have this against the side of my face, you know, your face isn't flat, so they kind of stick out at the end, if that's, you know, what we're using as a reference. They kind of stick out straight, so I'm considering potentially bending them just a little bit so they sit flatter, but again, I need to see how the mask is going to fit before I do that. So this is kind of the last stage that these are going to sit at. I'm gonna try and record some of the other processes of making the mask that I'm making. So hopefully you'll be able to see that eventually, but yeah, these are gonna get some elastic put on them, and then this is gonna get glued into the top part, and this will get glued into the bottom, so hopefully it'll pull shut when it's shut, and be able to stretch open when I need it to open. So I think that's just about it for this, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.